Now, the Trump administration appears undeterred after another leg of the president's revenge tour hit a roadblock. Attorney General Pam Bondi is promising to fight a judge's decision to toss out the criminal cases against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James.
Both of them, of course, are longtime targets of President Trump's wrath, and the cases against them were brought at his urging. Bondi says the judge won't have the final word. Listen.
We'll be taking all available legal action, including an immediate appeal, to hold Letitia James and James Comey accountable for their unlawful conduct. I'm going to keep going on this. I'm not worried about someone who has been charged with a very serious crime. His alleged actions were a betrayal of public trust.
The political landscape in Washington has reached a boiling point that few could have predicted, with the video revealing unprecedented tensions surrounding calls for the arrest of a sitting president. This development represents a fundamental shift in how constitutional crises are understood and addressed in American governance. The footage captures the raw intensity of a moment where traditional political mechanisms appear insufficient to address the gravity of the situation unfolding in the nation's capital. The narrative centers on recent judicial decisions that have fundamentally altered the legal landscape surrounding presidential accountability. When judges dismissed high-profile cases connected to both allies and rivals of the current administration, the legal system sent shockwaves through political circles that continue to reverberate through every branch of government. Attorney General Pam Bondi's immediate vow to pursue aggressive appeals demonstrates that the executive branch refuses to accept these judicial setbacks as final determinations of legal principle. What makes this situation particularly noteworthy is the emergence of arrest discussions within the halls of Congress itself, a development that would have been unthinkable in previous administrations regardless of political affiliation. Lawmakers from across the political spectrum are now engaging in serious conversations about whether immediate physical detention of the president represents a necessary constitutional remedy. This represents not merely political opposition, but a fundamental questioning of executive immunity and the boundaries of presidential power. The constitutional implications of these discussions cannot be overstated, as they touch upon the very foundation of separated powers that has defined American governance for over 2 centuries. The concept of arresting a sitting president exists in a legal gray area that constitutional scholars have debated theoretically but never confronted practically. The video suggests that what began as whispered conversations has evolved.
The allegations against them. I want to bring in CNN crime and justice correspondent Caitlin Polans to help us better understand the judge's rebuke yesterday, which was pretty strong, and how the Justice Department will move forward from here with an appeal, especially given the statute of limitations on Comey.
Yeah, we still haven't seen the appeal notices come in on these cases. So we're technically not in the realm of an appeal moving forward yet, although the Justice Department does promise us that they will be appealing this decision. It's 2-part. They are going to want to appeal on the part that says that the Attorney General installing Lindsay Halligan as the interim U.S. Attorney in big question there, though, about if they can and how the alleged false statements he was making to Congress that had been charged in 2 counts in this indictment that's now dismissed. Those statements took place September 30th, 2020. It's only 5 years for you to be able to charge a case in federal court like
Evolved into open deliberation, marking a historic departure from established protocols for addressing executive misconduct. The pressure campaign described in the footage operates on multiple levels simultaneously, creating a complex web of political, legal, and institutional tensions. While no actual arrest has materialized, the mere existence of organized efforts to bring about such an outcome signals a breakdown in the traditional mechanisms for resolving conflicts between branches of government. This breakdown threatens to reshape the relationship between the executive and legislative branches in ways that could persist long after the current crisis resolves. The legal battles unfolding in federal courts reveal a judiciary struggling to maintain its traditional role as arbiter while facing unprecedented political pressures. The dismissal of major cases has created a vacuum of accountability that Congress appears increasingly unwilling to tolerate through conventional means. This judicial landscape, combined with the aggressive appellate strategy announced by the Attorney General, suggests a prolonged legal war of attrition that could extend far beyond the immediate crisis. Behind the public statements and press conferences, the video indicates that closed-door congressional deliberations are exploring options that would have been dismissed as political fantasy mere months ago. These private discussions reflect a growing consensus among some officials that the current situation transcends ordinary political disagreement and enters the realm of existential constitutional threat. The secrecy surrounding these deliberations adds an additional layer of tension to an already volatile situation. The constitutional crisis framing employed throughout the video deserves careful examination, as it represents a specific interpretive lens through which these events are being understood. By characterizing the situation as a crisis rather than a scandal or controversy, participants are invoking a specific legal and political vocabulary that carries significant implications for how responses are justified. This framing suggests that extraordinary measures may be necessary to preserve constitutional order, a dangerous precedent regardless of which side employs it. The role of the Attorney General in this unfolding drama highlights the tension between executive branch loyalty and broader constitutional obligations. Bondi's commitment to aggressive appeals demonstrates the administration's determination to fight on every available legal front, but also raises questions about the appropriate use of prosecutorial discretion in politically charged cases. Her actions will likely be scrutinized for years as a case study in how top law enforcement officials navigate conflicts between institutional and political imperatives. The video's treatment of the arrest question reveals the profound uncertainty that now characterizes American constitutional law at its highest levels. What would have been dismissed as absurd speculation in earlier eras has become a subject of serious institutional deliberation, reflecting either a genuine crisis of governance or an alarming erosion of political norms. The ambiguity between these interpretations itself constitutes a significant feature of the current moment, making confident predictions about outcomes increasingly difficult. The international implications of this domestic constitutional crisis extend far beyond American borders, as allies and adversaries alike recalibrate their expectations of American political stability. The footage suggests that foreign governments are closely monitoring these developments, recognizing that the outcome could fundamentally alter how the United States is perceived and engaged on the world stage. This external attention adds additional pressure to domestic actors who must now consider international consequences alongside constitutional obligations. The media's role in amplifying and shaping these developments emerges as a significant theme throughout the video, with particular attention to how breaking news coverage influences the pace and intensity of political reactions. The symbiotic relationship between official statements and media interpretation creates feedback loops that can accelerate crises beyond the control of any single actor. Understanding this dynamic is essential for anyone seeking to comprehend how the current situation has escalated so rapidly. The historical parallels drawn in the video, whether explicit or implicit, invite comparison with previous constitutional crises in American history, though the current situation appears to lack clear precedent. From the Johnson impeachment to the Nixon resignation, American history offers examples of executive congressional conflict, but none involving serious consideration of physical arrest of the chief executive. This historical uniqueness contributes to the sense of uncertainty that pervades every aspect of the current crisis. The psychological impact of these developments on the American public deserves attention, as citizens confront the possibility that their most fundamental assumptions about governmental stability may no longer apply. The video captures something of this public anxiety, reflecting widespread uncertainty about whether existing institutions possess the capacity to resolve conflicts that appear to exceed their designed limitations. This public dimension transforms what might otherwise be an elite political conflict into a broader crisis of democratic confidence. The economic implications of prolonged constitutional crisis, while not the primary focus of the video, loom in the background as markets and investors attempt to price political risk. The footage hints at this dimension through references to financial and economic context, suggesting that the political turmoil is not occurring in isolation from broader economic concerns. The interaction between political instability and economic performance may prove decisive in determining how long the current crisis can persist without forcing resolution. The role of political parties in this crisis appears complicated by internal divisions that cross traditional ideological lines, creating unusual alliances and antagonisms that defy easy categorization. The video suggests that the arrest question has scrambled normal partisan alignments, with some members of the president's party expressing concern while opposition figures debate the wisdom of unprecedented measures. This fluidity adds unpredictability to an already volatile situation. The legal theories being advanced to justify arrest proposals proposals, while not examined in exhaustive detail in the video, clearly represent innovative interpretations of constitutional text and historical practice. These theories challenge long-standing assumptions about executive immunity and the appropriate mechanisms for addressing presidential misconduct. Their emergence in serious political discourse indicates a willingness to reconsider settled understandings when confronted with what proponents view as extraordinary circumstances. The institutional stresses revealed by this crisis extend to every branch of government, testing the resilience of design checks and balances in ways that may reveal systemic weaknesses requiring long-term attention. The video captures this institutional dimension through its attention to how different governmental actors are responding to pressures that appear to exceed their anticipated operational parameters. These stresses may produce lasting changes in how American government functions regardless of the immediate outcome. The question of public legitimacy emerges as a crucial consideration throughout the video, as various actors attempt to justify unprecedented actions through appeals to democratic principles and constitutional fidelity. These competing claims to legitimacy create a situation where the very criteria for legitimate political action have become contested, complicating efforts to resolve the crisis through established procedures. The absence of shared standards for evaluating political conduct represents a profound challenge to democratic governance. The temporal dimension of the crisis, including questions of urgency and appropriate pacing of responses, receives significant attention in the footage as participants debate whether immediate action is required or deliberative patience remains possible. This temporal pressure influences every aspect of decision-making, compressing the time available for careful consideration while simultaneously demanding responses to rapidly evolving circumstances. The interaction between time pressure and constitutional deliberation produces distinctive pathologies that shape available options. The video's attention to the role of evidence and factual determination in shaping political responses highlights the epistemological challenges of contemporary governance. Disputes about what has occurred and what it means create foundations for divergent political conclusions that prove difficult to reconcile through normal deliberative processes. The crisis thus involves not merely disagreement about appropriate responses, but fundamental conflicts regarding the factual predicates upon which responses should be based. The international legal dimensions of arresting a head of state, while primarily a domestic constitutional question, carry significant implications for how the United States can advocate for rule of law abroad while managing internal turmoil. The footage suggests awareness of this tension, as American officials must navigate between demanding accountability from foreign leaders while resisting similar mechanisms domestically. This hypocrisy problem, whether real or perceived, constrains available options and complicates diplomatic relationships. The technological and media environment in which this crisis unfolds differs fundamentally from previous constitutional moments, with social media and instantaneous communication creating dynamics that earlier generations of political actors did not confront. The video reflects this modern context through its attention to how information spreads and how public opinion forms in an environment of fragmented media consumption. These technological factors may prove decisive in determining whether traditional crisis management techniques remain viable. The psychological profiles of key actors, while necessarily speculative, receive implicit attention in the video's treatment of how different officials are responding to unprecedented pressures. Understanding individual decision-making under conditions of extreme stress and uncertainty may prove essential for predicting how the crisis will develop, yet such understanding remains necessarily incomplete given the limitations of external observation. This uncertainty about individual psychology adds another layer of unpredictability to systemic analysis. The constitutional amendments and statutory frameworks that might be invoked to resolve or manage this crisis receive attention as potential pathways through the current impasse, though the video suggests significant obstacles to their effective deployment. Whether through the 25th Amendment, impeachment provisions, or other constitutional mechanisms, existing frameworks appear inadequate to address the specific circumstances now confronting American government. This inadequacy of design solutions contributes to the experimentation with unprecedented alternatives. The role of the military and law enforcement in any arrest scenario, while not explicitly detailed in the video, represents an unspoken dimension that hangs over all discussions of executive detention. The practical requirements of physically apprehending a sitting president raise questions about institutional loyalty, chain of command, and the potential for violent confrontation that make theoretical discussions immediately concrete. These practical considerations may prove more decisive than legal or political arguments in determining what actually occurs. The long-term consequences for American democracy of even discussing presidential arrest, regardless of whether it actually occurs, may include lasting changes in political culture and institutional relationships that persist for generations. The video captures something of this historical weight, suggesting that the current moment represents not merely a temporary crisis, but a potential turning point in American constitutional development. Understanding these long-term implications is essential for evaluating the wisdom of various proposed responses. The comparative perspective, considering how other democracies have managed similar executive crises, offers potential insights, though the video maintains primarily American focus. Other nations have confronted situations of executive overreach or criminal conduct without collapsing into authoritarianism or chaos, suggesting that constitutional resilience may prove greater than current anxieties assume. These comparative lessons, while not directly applicable given American institutional uniqueness, may offer guidance for navigating the present uncertainty. The philosophical foundations of democratic accountability receive implicit examination through the video's treatment of whether any individual, regardless of office, should be above the law. This ancient question of equality before legal institutions takes on new urgency when applied to the most powerful office in the American system, testing commitments to rule of law that are frequently invoked but rarely so directly challenged. The outcome of this test will signal much about the actual, rather than merely aspirational character of American democracy. The final assessment of this situation must acknowledge the genuine uncertainty that pervades every aspect of the current crisis, from legal outcomes to political consequences to historical significance. The video captures this uncertainty without resolving it, presenting a picture of American governance in genuine flux without predetermined outcomes. What emerges is a portrait of constitutional democracy under extreme stress, revealing both the fragility and resilience of institutions designed for circumstances quite different from those now confronting them. The appropriate response to these developments requires maintaining analytical clarity while acknowledging the profound stakes involved in every possible outcome. Whether the arrest calls represent necessary constitutional correction or dangerous political escalation remains a question that only historical retrospection can definitively answer. Yet current observers must form judgments and take positions despite this uncertainty. The video serves as a valuable document of a moment when American democracy confronted fundamental questions about power, accountability, and the rule of law that will shape its trajectory for decades to come.